Indigenous art. Reid studied art in Toronto and London, England before returning to Vancouver to create large sculptures and celebrated Haida. His work earned international respect in several high-profile commissions. His most notable pieces were the four-tone raven and the first humans done for the University of British Columbia's museum, a whale called the Chief of the Undersea, world done for the Vancouver Aquarium, in the spirit of Haida, the majestic canoes that now grace the grand entry of the Canadian Embassy in Washington. The sculptures renewed interest in the Northwest Pacific Coast, Indigenous art culture, and his political advocacy brought attention to Indigenous issues. Indigenous government politics. French contact with Indigenous peoples involved trade, war, and missionary work. Official French policy had two objectives: to convert Indigenous peoples to Christianity and to eliminate them into French society. Although a few Indigenous groups settled on church-controlled agriculture reserves near the French, the vast majority continued to live apart as independent nations. By the 1690s, the failure of large-scale elimination of Indigenous people was accepted even by missionaries and government. Officials, fur trades had always discouraged it as being bad for trade, since the French settlements did not expand excessively into Indigenous territory and displaced the inhabitants. The French never recognized formally that Indigenous people had rights in their land, and no land cession treaties were ever made. Indigenous pop. Songs are often short, but they may be repeated a number of times during a performance. Singing styles varies according to the singers and styles performance of different nations. Most songs have a single melody that an individual or a group signs in specific singing roles, or often assigned to women and men. Songs may use words in Indigenous language or in English or French. They may make exclusive use of vocals, or they may use text and vocabularies and combinations. Songs serve a specific purpose and have a particular meaning, and therefore tend to be performed in a designated context. Indigenous culture. Ellis Knott was the first elected female nation chief in Canada. After 1951, the Indian Act allowed Indigenous women to vote and participate in band governments. Chief of her First Nation for 14 years, Knott was dedicated to persevering the Ojibwe language and was known for her community activism and support of education. In 1974, Rolf Garvin became the first Indigenous person to serve as a lieutenant of Canadian province. He read the speech from the throne in 1975. Indigenous science. In accepting a position at the Prince George Regional Hospital in 2005, Karen became the first female Indigenous general surgeon in Canada. She also excelled as an associate facility member at the Johns Hopkins Center for American Indian Health and Duel. As a professor in the Department of Surgery at the University of British Columbia's Facility of Medicine, Karen leads the University Hospital of Northern British Columbia's, which allows those in remote, usually Indigenous communities, access to personalized genetic research and